Kids are driving me crazy. Let's give them a project to do. So I was sitting at Girl Scouts the other night, and they're talking about going to get their merit badges and in first aid, and I thought, well, I've made an ouch pouch for my daughter before, and I wonder if we couldn't come up with something, a little project for them to do in one of their meetings without breaking out a whole bunch of tools, maybe just lace up something useful for themselves. And I thought, well, maybe we can do a little first aid kit, or utility box anyway. So, a couple straps in this form, punch some holes for them ahead of time, and scribe some folds with a V-groover. And I think that it's a younger group, so I don't want anything too complex for them. I suppose, depending on the age of your girls, you could tailor this up or down for them a little bit. Include some more advanced techniques, include a couple more tools. If you wanted to have them stamp their troop number or their names into it, you could have them do that, or even carving if you really wanted to go for an actual badge for the leather crafting. But I think we'll just start real simple, give them an introduction to leatherwork, and let them play a little bit. The one thing that you do need to know about this, in order to make everything fit right, I did cut these side tabs a little shorter than the base of the box, so they'll go inside. And when I cut the form out, I started my blade about 1/8 of an inch in, just so that it would fold up into the inside and make a side pocket. There's the front, there's the back, there's the lid, and a closure. So let's get some holes punched in there. All right, that looks pretty good. Yeah, real happy with that. All right, let's get some holes knocked in it. This one at the top on the front is a little bit of an exception, because the intent is I'll run a button stud through that I'll run a button stud through here, so I'm actually going to make this hole a little bit bigger on the lid. Let me switch out, I'll knock this hole in there, and then I'll switch out the punch for one that's just a little bigger, so that that button stud has a bigger hole to slide through. And then in addition to that, I'm going to put a little slit in it so that it pops in there easier. And when I say little, I mean not much of anything. Just enough to open the leather up to accept that button stud, and that's good. So there we are. That's just, I mean, it's barely visible, but what that'll do, instead of having a super tight fit to get the lid closed, the leather will spread out where I made the slit. It'll pop back on there, and it'll hold tight enough for whatever they're doing with it. They're probably going to wind up using them to hold their squishies and their trinkets. All right, now what we got to do is a lot of small hole punching. Same size. This accommodates the imperial lace that I use real well. It's a synthetic lace. I've worked with rawhide and real leather before, and made my own pieces of strapping, but that stuff it's thin enough, and it's just got the right weight and consistency to it to make life easier, especially when you're dealing with kid projects, because they can tend to get frustrated a little easier than adults. Well, a little easier than other adults. I still get as frustrated as every one of them does. All right, I'll lend a bit of color to this thing. I'll try and keep this coat as light as I can, because I don't want to overwhelm them with this forest green. That's about as close to an olive drab as I can get, and I really don't want that. Really don't want that. Good enough. Leave the inside unfinished. And there's parts I'm hitting heavier than others. Where I got heavy dye on my dauber, I'm going to start with the sides that show. So the front and the top flap and the top pouch. The rest of it, it's going to be on the back, on the bottom, hidden behind straps, so I don't really care. I'm coming in, I put a little pencil mark about a 1/2 inch in from each edge. So I'll start this way and work till I'm done, and then I'll start this way and work till I'm done, and that's going to give me relatively even spacing, just by virtue of how many characters I'm dealing with. So I'm going to start at my 1/2 inch mark, see how she goes. Oh yeah, plenty damp enough just from the dye, no need for additional water. I want them to be able to do it with any flat piece of metal they got laying around as a backing. Just throw that guy on there. Push that guy down. It doesn't take specialty tools to smack rivets onto the back of this thing, and if they got a common household hammer, then they should be in good shape. If they don't, then they can get a shoe or, you know, whatever rusty old piece of crud they got laying around, and they can smack some rivets and set them pretty effectively. Ta-da! All we gotta do is lace the darn thing up. And this is where I want to put the girls to the test at our next meeting and see if their little fingers can manipulate this. Pre-folding some of these lines and giving them a little crease is certainly going to make their life easier, and easier for anybody else I send one of these out to. 2 pieces of the appropriate size, knotted at the end. Start in the back corner on the inside so it hides your knot. And it does make life easier if you kind of follow the natural curve of the thing, but it's absolutely not necessary. Watch, I'm proving myself wrong because I'm having a hard time with it now. Okay. So that knot's going to be big enough to keep it from pulling through. I'm going to wrap it around the back and come in from the other side. Bottom hole. And just make sure that's crawling up the side. And then it's just a matter of laddering it one after the other all the way up. There's only 5 holes on each side to make this process a little smoother for them. I suspect that it's going to do a good enough job holding this thing together if they can pull these things tight enough. But that's what we shall see. These holes swelled a bit when I put the die on, so I may wind up dyeing it and then punching it afterwards. Okay, so there's my last one. That's one side complete. It's pretty well together. It doesn't seem to be pulling apart very easily. And then I'll proceed to wrap the top and then go back down on the front side. This will give it a little bit of profile, a little bit of decoration, but more importantly, it gets me to where I need to be without having to send 4 separate pieces to have them do their lacing. Hit the top, through the front. The salvation of doing this for children might be that the size of their hands is not going to get in the way of their own work. Okay, so there's their little pouch. Hangs off of their backpack, off of their belt. Easy enough to open. I did on the second side when I went around and laced up on the back side. Anywhere there was a stress point here at the top, so I double looped that corner and double looped the bottom just like I did on the front side. I would also double loop this one and that one, just for strength. I'll include another, 1/2 inch material in there just as a lesson learned. So there they go.